Welcome to the Shuffle Curious podcast. I'm your host, Patty Lynch. Have you ever seen an amazing shuffler at a show or festival and wondered, how did they get started? How did they develop their skills? And who are they beyond the dance floor? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring in this show. We'll dive into the personal experiences of the dancers that make up our beloved community. We'll be learning more about who they are and what makes this dance so special to them. So, with that, let's jump into the show and let's get curious together. Hello to the Shuffle Curious community out there. This is episode 16 of the Shuffle Curious podcast. And in this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Jake Kerins. And it was such a vibe speaking with Jake. You know, we just haven't had the opportunity to really sit down and talk at this length and really dig into his story. And I was extra excited for this because, you know, I've just been hearing that Jake and seeing Jake really serving the shuffle community in a myriad of ways. And, you know, this ranges from instructing to collaborating with other shufflers, engaging with, you know, his followership on social media, and creating communal ties in his wake, whether that be online or, you know, in the different locations where he's teaching, such as the Collaboratory Complex here in Denver. And during our conversation, you know, Jake shared his humble beginnings, which was a huge eye-opener for me. I think we all look at Jake as this incredible dancer. His style and his skill set can very much appear to be unattainable to many of us. So it was encouraging to have him articulate that he started like all of us. And, you know, he didn't really have a strong dance background, you know, when he began. His journey started in a basement, which he just gradually worked his way up to become the exceptional dancer that he is today. And I think this serves as a reminder for all of us that with a similar obsession for the dance, because Jake is very much obsessed with this dance, we can all really achieve the level of proficiency and self-expression that he has. And, you know, another piece of this conversation that really fascinated me was Jake's experience with, you know, his audience and his followership that's been growing over time. He's been in the limelight over the past couple of years. So we really spent a considerable amount of time just exploring this topic. And Jake didn't shy away from sharing his insights. It was intriguing for me to hear about, you know, how he's navigated all of the challenges and the opportunities that have come with this growing audience. So I really appreciated his openness throughout our conversation. It was awesome to hear about, especially from him. So in this episode, you know, we covered a lot of ground, and I'm confident that you guys will get a lot out of this. So, you know, without further ado, this is my conversation with Jake. I hope you guys enjoy. Jake, what's up, man?
Nothing, man. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Dude, it is my pleasure. It's been a little bit of a back and forth between us, you know what I mean? Like just trying to find a good day and time for all this. I know you've been doing like a lot of festivities, whether that be travel, whether that be festivals, shows, that sort of thing. So, and I know the feeling of you know, trying to get your bearing on life after all that. So I'm so glad that we were able to kind of find a time for both of us.
Absolutely. I mean, April was one of the biggest months of my life so far. So it was really tough to find the time, but I'm really excited that we were able to find the date that works.
Yeah, and we'll definitely unpack that, everything that's gone
it's a
down.
Can of worms.
You're probably still processing all of it.
Definitely.
But no, it's awesome to have you on, man. Like I was saying when we were like riding the elevator up, it's we just haven't been afforded, you know, this time to really sit down and just chat. So I'm really looking forward to it, you know.
Definitely.
But I like to start off many of the podcasts with kind of how we met, and it's funny because we were chatting about this a little bit before we went on air, and you kind of calibrated my memory, and it's crazy because like my memory is starting to kind of fail me a little bit because obviously time is passing, but like the amount of people that I'm meeting is crazy too, you know. So it's like putting everyone in the right category, right timeline. It's sometimes difficult. But so I thought that I had met you at the church nightclub in October. It was October 2021. And that was for Kyle Walker. But as we started chatting about it, you brought up a good point. Like we had like a pretty solid interaction there. And it's like there must have been something before that primed us to be a little bit more familiar with
Right.
one another. And so we kind of deduced it to we met at Shuffle Wisdom, the Halloween party that Jolie threw here in Colorado, I think in Littleton. It was like a amphitheater there. And I just remember because you were the avatar.
Yes. Had the ears, the tail, the whole thing.
Yep. And you were getting down, and I was still very much like a shuffle toddler at that point in time. So very, very intimidated by you. Very intimidated by many
I'm flattered.
of the individuals who like flew there for that. You know what I mean? Like that was my first like national experience as a shuffler. Just seeing everyone, I was like, oh crap. She's from Florida. He's from California. Like, what's going on here? So it was really cool to meet you there, and then just seeing you around, like such as the church nightclub, then meeting Amy as well. At Shuffle, she was at Shuffle Wisdom.
She was
as well.
too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't remember what she was dressed up as, honestly. Probably something simple like a cat or something.
The go-to. But yeah, man. And then ever since, like, it's been really great just like seeing you here, like you participating in the local community in so many different facets, like going to shows, going to festivals. I saw you at Dream State, which I didn't think I'd see you there.
Oh, yeah, that was quite the time.
Yeah. We'll talk about whether you're going again this year. But also just like creating, curating, doing collabs like in our local community, outside of our local community, like teaching, instructing, showing that this dance is accessible to many people. Because like I feel like a lot of, and this is kind of where you fill the gap here. You and Amy do a great job. I think there's a lot of people who very much need structure in their learning and might feel intimidated by just like coming out and just trying their best, or to learn on the fly by going to meetups, by just like hanging around other shufflers. There's a little bit of anxiety and like maybe performance anxiety that comes with it. But then once there's an environment where that's like what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like we are here to learn X, Y, and Z. It's like you're not burdening anyone. You're not like this is a time and a place where we're all gonna get together and just learn. And you and Amy have done a great job with that. With your weekly classes at the Collaboratory. So it's like also like that's building community too, because there's people who learn in all different ways, and you are catering to that demographic, the people who are just most comfortable with that class setting. And then you guys are very communal in those settings too, and like you bring them out to then the meetups and the shows and all these things.
Yeah.
So that's awesome to see. And then just the pure workload that you're putting into this community, and it looks like it's a labor of love, from my eyes. So it's amazing what you guys do, and that's also why like I just really wanted you on the podcast to like showcase that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for sure. We actually just came up on a year of teaching at the Collaboratory Complex.
Got it.
And it really has been such a wonderful part of my life. It is amazing to see, like you had mentioned, we have built our own community within this wider
subset.
community. Yeah. And it's been amazing. And you do hear that from the people who come to our community, that they are a little intimidated to come to these things, but little by little, they start coming to classes. They start to feel a little more confident. The people in the classes are all of a sudden running up and giving each other hugs. And I'm like, I didn't even know you guys were friends. They're like, oh, this is so amazing. Now they're going out to shows together. So it really has been so rewarding to see that community grow, and then to be able to bring it back to the larger, community of Mile High shufflers in the area.
And it takes, so I think, a lot of discipline to like hold these week in and week out. Cause I've seen like, I see you and Amy like on Instagram and like practicing your classes and coming up with these choreographies or lesson plans essentially. So it's not just like you're rolling up willy-nilly and like no work has been done and you're just like, all right, Amy, you got this? Like, yeah, we're good. You know what I mean? Like made it up 10 minutes before. You guys are putting in the work before these classes, and you're staying consistent, and people always get behind consistency.
You're totally right.
Like when something is predictable and certain, like people can hang their hat on it, and like that's what you guys are doing, like week in and week out. So it's really special. I know it's hard, so I applaud you. I applaud you guys.
Yeah, we are. It's nice. We kind of found our own rhythm in it. It is nice to have two choreographers collaborating together. So if we are, I mean, every week we pretty much come up with a new 8 count dance. Some of the moves start to become, some of the combos and things might be repeated, but for students who've been coming for a year, it starts to feel familiar. And that feeling of really hitting the choreography is really, gets you going. So it works well to kind of have some familiarity and some repetition in some of the combos that we do. But it still feels pretty new every time. And we have so much fun with it.
Yeah. And it's probably for the instructors and the students, it's like when you are adding in maybe a familiar 8 count here and there, it's like they can grasp onto it better. And then it's kind of less rigors of coming up with something for you guys as well. But then inserting those like the unpredictable parts or the parts that are new, it's like, okay, we're working within this comfort zone, and then we're just outside of that, the discomfort zone. But that's how we're continuing to grow. So I think you guys are being very methodical about it as well.
For sure. And we'll say, for instance, you might recognize this from this choreography that we did a few weeks ago, or this one, and everyone kind of perks their ears up. Oh yeah, I remember this. Like, oh, this will make sense. But this time the BPM might be much faster, which pushes you a little bit harder. But yeah, we are just so blessed with that community. It's become almost, teaching there has almost created this, I guess, like makes us look kind of like we're getting gigs and things now because it's kind of validated us as teachers. We're teaching at a studio. There's you see these kind of cool videos in the studio space. It kind of makes us look legit, which has been really nice and such a blessing in itself.
Which you guys are.
It definitely feels that way, but it's just been such a blessing to kind of have that there as a part of our resume and as a part of our feed and what you're consistently seeing. So yeah, it's been great.
That's awesome, man. Before we get into your background, like what are some of the things that you guys are excited about on like the instruction part?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. So we are teaching at Meow Wolf on this upcoming Monday, loving having you included in that.
I'll be there.
Yeah, so that'll be a beginner workshop, and we are kind of having a dance party afterwards. I don't know if you're familiar with Daybreaker. Have you heard of Daybreaker before?
I know that you guys have been to their Red Rocks events, and I think you guys performed there, right? At the previous one. Yeah.
That was pretty epic as a part of the April being the busiest month of my entire life, added to that. But so Daybreaker has created this community where you just come do yoga in the morning, and then you have this crazy ecstatic dance party.
Okay.
And it sounds just on paper like, oh, that's like interesting. It sounds like something I would like to go to, but they have built this insane community about expressing yourself and feeling comfortable in this. And it's all about like not taking substances, no drinking, like sober, fun dance party. And so it's been such a impactful part of my life, and seeing that community and seeing the importance of community and how you build that and what that looks like. So this is the first time we're doing something like that. And I would love to, in the future, build on that to where you're having these things maybe all over the world, country, you name it, but it would be that you come learn shuffling and then you practice, in like shuffle circles, pushing people out of their comfort zones, like just a ton of fun, but where you feel comfortable to really express yourself, and building community around that. So this is kind of the first one of that. So super excited to kind of build on that concept. But Amy has been getting all these amazing gigs at teaching at festivals, and I'm just here for the ride. I'm like, I get the free ticket too. I'm the side piece. I'm so happy to be the side piece. But I'm definitely going to be assisting her and instructing. Very much would love to be a part of it. But she is teaching at Lightning in a Bottle. That is at the end of this month. Then after that, she's teaching at Sonic Bloom in Colorado, and then she just got the gig for Electric Forest. So she'll be teaching at the Rotary.
Dude, sick.
Still figuring out some logistics there. So don't hold me accountable if that falls through. But she just got that. So we're going there. Just found out like a week ago. So a lot of really cool opportunities to teach in different capacities outside of the Collaboratory, but very much excited.
That's amazing, man. Congratulations
Thank you so much.
to both of you guys in that. Like, you guys are spreading your gift, and there's people who are trusting in you to do that. So it's amazing to hear. And I applaud you guys for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And I will try to have this out, you know what I mean? To kind of give you, like, it might be it'll be definitely after the fact for the Meow Wolf, class there. But it seems like you guys will continue to be doing this Daybreaker type style, events. So hopefully this will be a good, promotion for that. When it still gets released, whenever that may be.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
But as for you and your background, I'd like to kind of dig into that quite a bit. So if you could just describe to the audience, where are you from originally, and how long have you been in Colorado? And then I'll have some follow-on questions.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia in the Norristown, King of Prussia area. And I moved to Denver May 1st of 2021. So I just came up on 2 years living here.
Got it. Awesome. And with that, how long have you been shuffling for?
I believe it is 5+ years. So maybe about 5.5 years I've been shuffling.
Okay. Got it. So you were in Pennsylvania at that time?
No. So I had moved around a little bit in between moving to Colorado. My work right after college, I moved to Connecticut. And then from there, close right there is Rhode Island. So I was there for 2 years. And that's where I started my shuffle journey.
Okay.
And then I moved to Hoboken, New Jersey from 2018 to 2020. And then stayed right outside of Philadelphia again for a couple months and then moved to Denver.
Got it. Got it. Awesome, man.
Little timeline.
So, another question that I have for you, and this will kind of lead into the next. How were you as a kid? What was your temperament, disposition as an adolescent?
That's such an interesting question. I don't know the last time or if anyone has ever asked me that question. I was very outspoken, outgoing, very much what you see now. I was always that way.
Some extroversion.
Yes,
going
very
on.
much extroverted, very much always a jokester, always making people laugh, always kind of trying to control the room a bit, trying to be the center of attention. Always, a little out there, a little different, but always very much expressive and like happy to be a little bit different. And I always felt rewarded for it. So it kind of just kept rolling.
Got it. So probably that expression that you've had, and maybe the comfortability of being the center of attention might have primed you for a shuffle journey. So was there anything else that might have primed you in that regard? Any sports that you might have played or any other yearnings to express?
Not exactly. I never had any, actual training in dance, but I was always a good dancer and always wanting to dance and always dancing in very much any situation I had the opportunity to. So I think that definitely primed me to feel comfortable to move how I wanted, because people seemed to enjoy my dancing and whatever I was doing, either in a goofy capacity, which was very much how it was for the majority of my life.
Starting off.
But it was always like, that's actually pretty good, But it was always like, something goofy. Like I was the kid in high school who had a mean stinky leg, you're like stanky leg, like I had a mean one, you're like, okay, cool. But, or like the jerk, you're like, oh man, that's pretty good, But never really applied myself too much. Actually.
It's funny that you mentioned those because we're about the same age and it's like that's what was going down in high school at that point in time.
That was the dance, You
were probably doing the Soldier Boy in middle school, right? Yep, exactly. Awesome, man. Okay, so leading up to like the origins of shuffling itself, kind of like where was the ground zero where it's like maybe you saw it, or maybe that influence inserted itself, where you were like, maybe the shuffling thing might be for me?
Yeah, there's definitely a few that come to mind. For first, I'm trying to kind of create a timeline in my own head, but they all kind of seem to be around the same time. And the first, it was, I believe it was 2017. I went to Electric Forest with Amy. We had a small group, but T-Mac, Kevin, you're familiar with that.
Kevin.
T-Mac? Oh, it's so funny. He's really been not sharing for I don't even know how long at this point, but
that might be why.
That's probably unfamiliar. Yeah, it's interesting. But he went to Electric Forest by himself, and he was just commanding these circles. It was so captivating, and just the joy you saw it bring to people's faces, and it was just so much fun to watch. And so I think that would probably be my first touch point with it. And then as time grew on, I think I was exposed to just a few different videos here and there, very much coming from Tupel. So I saw a video from him at Elements, I'm not even sure what year, maybe 2017 or 2017. And it might even been 2016, honestly, but he was dancing on a piece of wood in the middle of a festival on the grass. And he was just floating back and forth, swinging his legs in between. And it just was, like I said, just like Kevin or T-Mac, it was just captivating. And my body, I could feel kind of tensing up. I could feel it's I want to do that. Just kind of seeing a few things here and there. Definitely Elena Cruz was featured in a music video for Blau, Is It Love? I'm not sure if you're familiar. You definitely have to watch it. It's so old now, but
Put it in the show
it was the whole music video. She was the whole thing. And she's just shuffling on the beach and doing all cutting shapes and moving in these really cool, fascinating ways. And you've never seen it before. Your mind has never seen people move that way. So it definitely starts to get the gears turning, and just being so a part of the scene and going to so many of these things, you start to think, this is such a cool way to connect to the music. I was going to festivals and, just dry humping and fist pumping, and that's all I really had. But it gave you a whole new perspective and a new idea of the way that you could connect to the music. So I think that slowly started to creep up until.
And how long had you been raving or going to festivals at this time, where it's now this was starting to trickle into the picture?
Yeah, it was a while. So I went to my first rave in 2011. It was my graduation day. It was Avicii at a warehouse in Philadelphia. It was, that was my first experience. Levels was still an ID. And I thought the song was called ID because I was so new to the scene. I actually got in arguments with people about it. It's called Levels. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's called ID. But soon found out it's called Levels. But that was my first experience with it. And then that summer, I went to a festival called Identity Festival. So since 2011, went to a bunch all the way up until 2018. So it had been quite a time. And like we had mentioned before this, it was never even in my in my eye. I didn't really see anybody at the shows I was going to, festivals, ever shuffling. So it was so new to me when I did finally see it for the first time.
Which is wild. Maybe do you think shuffling was less pronounced in the rave scene at that time, and that's why? Or was it serendipitous that you just were when shufflers went this way, you went that way?
I'm really not sure. I'm not sure if it was a lot of the music that I was gravitating towards wasn't as shuffle friendly at the time, or people weren't associating that dance style to what I was going to see. Big Room.
Heavy,
I mean, I don't know. That was kind of the world that I was in. It was all Tiesto, Hardwell, Martin Garrix. And maybe I was just too in it to even look around. Or maybe, most dancers at that time were maybe in the back or in different spaces. And I was more right in the mix of things, in the pit, just, going for it. So I don't know. I'm not sure why I hadn't seen it before, but it just never came up, or never really saw it.
Interesting. Yeah. No, and that's cool. That's cool because you delayed gratification a little bit. You know what I mean? It probably made you feel, pretty good when you actually started, jumping into it. I know that the learning process can be frustrating and it's like a little bit of a struggle, and we all have our trials and tribulations regarding it. But after you garnered that inspiration from Two Pool and then Kevin
Two Pool. T-Mac was it?
T-Mac,
Yeah.
T-Mac, got it. So from that point on, what was like the bridge that you had, or the gap that you had to bridge from like, oh crap, I know what this is now, and I've seen people who are good at it, to the moment that you started practicing? Was Amy involved with this?
Oh yeah, she gets all the credit for sure for bridging that gap. Yeah. So I had gone on a trip for work at that time, and I was in Africa for a couple of weeks. And so in that time, Amy says that she was just bored and always wanted to be able to do this. And so she started practicing. And when I came home, she had been practicing now for a couple of weeks, and she'd showed me what she has learned and tried to show me and then I tried to pick it up. And I always tell the story because I find it so funny, but she tried to show me the shuffle, the running man. And I remember trying to do it in my kitchen and just fumbling and her laugh at me. And I'm like, fuck this. I'm done.
Put a pin in it.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not for me. I'm very much someone who, feels like I'm pretty natural and like good at things when I first start. So that always keeps it rolling. And when I wasn't, I was a little apprehensive to maybe pushing it a little bit further. But yeah, she just kept at it. And then from there, there's this one book that I read. And at the time, it was all kind of this perfect storm, but it's called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And it's all about having a creative outlet. And she's pushing people to just do something just to do it and for no other reason, just to be an expression of yourself. And after reading that book, I started to think that I don't have one. And I feel like I'm a very creative person. And it just definitely opened my eyes because I was going to work, going home, going to the gym, repeating the same cycle, but nowhere in there was there anywhere that I was expressing myself the way that she was talking about. And so at the same time that Amy's showing me this, and I like the music, and I just kind of decided that was going to be what I pushed myself to learn. In the book, they're trying to push you, like, try something new. What has been calling you? And so that just was knocking at my door at the time. And yeah, so that's when I started.
Dude, that's so sick. That book gave you that type of inspiration to, press the I believe button for shuffling, even though you had mentioned that, you enjoyed dancing, like dancing kind of came naturally to you. So maybe that helped you in deciding like that's the creative outlet that you wanted to have. But like I met that fork in the road in my journey as well. Like when I was in the military, I was going to work, going to the gym, going to sleep. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how it worked for the longest time. And it was driving me nuts, like that I wasn't able to put my creative energies into something. And for a little bit, it was kind of like it was an analytical type of creativity. I was doing some stuff with real estate, and sometimes I had to like structure deals in a creative way, and I really had to put my thinking cap on it to do that. But it wasn't like dance where you can let loose. It was like I was grounded into something. And so started playing guitar. That wasn't doing it for me. Started swing dancing, which is a step in the right direction, but still very structured because it's a partner dance, and like you need to be doing something for the other person to be doing something. And it just so happens that like shuffling appeared and was very much the creative outlet that you're describing. So it's kind of cool that, and I don't think we are anomalies. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people might venture and try and find these creative outlets, and then eventually they're led to shuffling, or maybe something else. You know what I mean? Maybe shuffling was what swing dancing was for someone else, or whatever else.
Stepping stone, yeah.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So it's very cool that you tapped in, at that time after garnering that inspiration from the book. So at that, once you knew that you were going to do this, and you wanted to continue to practice, how did that look? What was there, like I said, were there frustrations involved? How did you go about it? Like, was it loose? You were doing it just for fun? Was it structured? Were you doing it with Amy, or did you not want to see her to see you? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At that time, like when you were figuring stuff out, how did it look?
So at the time, I was living in this 3-story Victorian home that someone just let us rent because it had been on the market for a very long time. And I lived on the 3rd floor, and it was a lot of steps to get up there. And at the time, I was doing CrossFit every single day. And so I got in this routine of when I got home, I was in this creepy dungeon basement, but it was cement floors. It was something that I wasn't bothering anyone, and I could kind of go in this little pocket down there and practice. And so I got in the routine of every single time, every day when I got done CrossFit, I would immediately go into that door, go into the basement, and just try to shuffle and just try new moves and just try to kind of perfect what I was learning at the time, that I was like coming to mimicking some of the people that I mentioned who were inspirations. And at the time also, Amy and I were doing long distance. So she was in New Jersey. So it would be more so that she would come up every weekend. We were oscillating every weekend. I would go to Jersey, or she would come up to Rhode Island. So it wasn't like we could really practice together. And we were very much doing it on our own. And I think there was this level of competition, in my head, like I want to get good at this too, because now we're both doing it. And I just kept practicing. I filmed myself a bunch just to watch myself back and to be able to review and correct things that I didn't really like the way they looked. But just continued to do that for a while. Never shared anything that was like, oh God, no. Like maybe a story. That was always like, if I got to a point where I was like, oh, I really like the way this one looked, maybe I'll post it as a story. 24 hours, no real commitment. I did it. Throw your phone away for 24 hours. But yeah, it just kind of continued to grow that way.
Okay, got it. So it seemed like kind of methodical. It seemed methodical in that you were consistent with it after CrossFit, to the dance dungeon, whether you want to or not. And I'm sure, like during that time for me at least, like when everything was so novel, like when I remember hitting the Charleston for the first time, I was like, yo, I'm getting this. It was to a Snoop Dogg song. And I was like, yo, Snoop Dogg would be proud. Like those types of moments, it very much propels you forward and you want to keep going with it. Like, was that kind of how it was going for you? Were there more good days than bad days?
Yeah, I would say once it started to pick up, it definitely became trying to find new moves to add to your arsenal. And like you said, it would be so exciting to watch yourself back and really feel like you hit that move that you've been practicing for a while. And also just the joy of freestyling and something coming out that you weren't even trying to practice. And I feel like that's where you start to get like addicted, because you really don't know what you're capable of. And, you start to express yourself and something crazy comes out and you're like, oh, wow, I love the way that looked. Now you like put that in your back pocket for later. And so at the same time that you're practicing these new moves, you're just trying to express yourself. And what comes of it is really rewarding. And like, you're like, heck yeah, like this is definitely why people catch that bug and it just becomes your whole obsession, know?
Yeah. So when do you think you could just flow? You know what I mean? Like you could kind of turn off your brain a little bit. You weren't thinking about, okay, now I'm going from the Running Man into the Polly Pocket into the blah, blah, blah. It was just like, I'm just doing this and the music is dictating it to me.
I'm trying to think I'm trying to think back to the difference of when like I felt like I could do that confidently, but there's definitely a point that I reached where, you're like, wow, you got done, you watch yourself back, you're like, that's it. Like that's where I really found my flow, what I want to look like. So there's like our different points,
probably
I would
like
say.
A spectrum at each point in time.
For sure. But I would probably say, I don't know. That's a tough question because I would have to kind of maybe look back to my videos to see at what point I really felt that way. For a long time, I was really so much focused on cutting shapes. And so I was very like staying in one place.
Yeah.
And then Amy's like, you got to move around. Like you're supposed to move around, you know? And so it became trying to figure out ways to, you know, take up space and how I would move that way. And so I definitely remember a point, maybe like 2 or 3 months in, where I watched myself back and I loved the way I looked like I was floating, and it was starting to click. Outside of just kind of doing some fun footwork, it was like, oh, like that felt really good, and very smooth and kind of easy, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of hit that point where that muscle memory kicks in and you're not even thinking anymore. So I probably think that came in 3-4 months in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. It's very exciting when like the way I describe it, it's like if someone put like a pizza plate like underneath you, and then you're just dancing on it, and then someone's moving it around with you. You know what I mean? It's like once you've gotten to that point, that's what it looks like, that you're dancing in place, but for some reason you're moving around the floor. That's a really exciting time in a shuffle journey, you know? And I'm sure like that was like the moment where you're like, oh crap, I'm using space in this way, you know?
I am floating.
So when you got to that point, I know that you've probably developed your style. Like you had mentioned that it was very shapes oriented, and we had talked about this a little bit before, that was your entry point, so to speak, for shuffling, and like that's kind of like your origins. Were you taking all this in like in isolation, and it's like that's just all you kind of knew, so that's what you gravitated towards? And then like, you know, Amy would come to you and be like, I'll do a Running Man more and like oscillate and like things like that. Like what were your influences at that time, and how do you feel like that might have helped you, like maybe not hindered but like maybe stunted your growth in some areas?
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting idea, because there is so much out there now. If someone wanted to start shuffling today, there are so many resources. There are a gazillion people out there sharing, expressing themselves in very different ways and different movements.
Classes.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so much for you to see and kind of absorb in your whole shuffle journey. But when I started, there was only a few people who I was exposed to, and they were the larger shufflers, and like Tupul and Elena, like Vanessa, those are the only people that I had any sort of reference to, or they're the only people that I knew doing it. And I honestly didn't even know that many people in the world were doing it. You know, my entry point to it was just those people. And so I think that at the same time where I'm kind of doing it in my own little bubble, I loved expressing myself and kind of wanting to create a flow that was unique to me. So while I'm absorbing certain things that I like in transitions and moves, it always came back to me to be like, how do I make this my own? And how do I create my own unique flow for myself? And so I think that is almost like been a blessing, because then you come up and you have this whole unique expression that is yourself, while if you're exposed to so much stuff, you might not realize how much you are mimicking versus creating what it is that could be just unique to you. So you're like doing it in your basement by yourself. There's no other influences really. And that's where I felt like I fell into it. And that's kind of where I've grown from, I would say.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Because I think when we incubate ourselves with just ourselves, you know, maybe not even outside influences, more of us come out in our dance. So, you know, I'm all about prescribing people to look at tutorials and look at tutorials specifically for certain styles, like Cali style, Mas, Melbourne, like different shapes, you know, UK shapes, like American shapes, like all that stuff. But also to like then take a step back from it for a little bit and like practice those things on your own and have that incubation chamber with yourself, you know, just to be goofy and do what feels good to you. Because then you're adding your own like flair to what's already been established. And like even like in your case, it seems like there wasn't much, you know, outside influence, and you were just really, you know, doing what felt good to you. So it's very cool to hear about, and it's that kind of like inspiration for me too, because like I do feel like I'm constantly like, I want to emulate that person, but it's like I want to emulate that person as to how they will look on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and a lot of times it's like, for instance, I'll see someone do a shape combo and I'm like, wow, I want to learn how to do that. But then I take it and then in my incubation, I'm like doing it one way and then reversing it completely, like, and then it becomes this whole other animal. But like the inspiration came from someone else, or just one little transition can go so far for your brain to just all of a sudden have a million other ideas of how you can incorporate that into your own flow, but you took that inspiration from someone else. But I feel like I always have this idea that I want it to feel just me, very much an expression of me, a unique flow. I think that everyone should have that goal, in their shuffle journey.
Yeah, and it's like I said, very cool to hear about, and it was probably very encouraging to see that maybe when you stepped out into the shuffle community, which I'll ask you kind of like when the crossroads kind of met there, where you're a little bit of like a closet shuffler, basement shuffler, and then how you kind of broke out into the shuffle community, whether that be on a local level or a national level. But was there any point in time where you were getting frustrated, or maybe like, since you were doing this in isolation, maybe you're hard on yourself to the point where you maybe took a break, or you were even pondering quitting, or anything like that? Any trials and tribulations that you kind of went through?
Honestly, no, I don't think so. Nothing ever. I think I just caught the bug and just fell in love with it. So after that point, it just became a non-negotiable in my routine. And just like I said, like really, it became a part of me. So at that point, there was no turning back.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so with that, like, there's been quite the transformation from that point up until now. When did you immerse yourself in the community? I know you have a very strong presence and followership on Instagram and all the other, socials out there. When did that start kind of ramping up?
Yeah, so I would say that one of the first times there was this might be all around the same time, but I started sharing. I remember sharing my first video and being so nervous. And that kind of just put myself out there and feeling more comfortable with sharing this part of my life with people. And then there was one video, and I'm trying to backtrack where this all falls, but it's kind of all around the same time. So it makes sense. But Electric Zoo.
Okay.
It wasn't in 2020. They weren't having it because of COVID, and they wanted to kind of share. Oh no, you know what? I think my first introduction was there was meetups of Nameless in NYC.
Got it.
And Amy was actually connecting with Nameless and hosting shuffle meetups in Hoboken.
I did not know that.
So yeah, there was this whole thing, and so I think that was my first introduction to meeting a lot of the shufflers in the scene, being connected to them. I'm trying to think. There's a few other instances where I felt like I was meeting. Like there was one moment where I referenced that I saw Tupul dancing on a piece of wood, and then I'm pretty sure it was a year later. Like I'm mirroring with him on that piece of wood at Elements, and Elements had invited all of these shufflers to come together. It was like Mary Grace, Tupul, who else was there? T-Mac, who I'd mentioned. I Am Long. He used to be called I Am Long, but I'm not sure what is at the moment. But Amir. I'm trying to think of who else was there, but some pretty big shufflers at the time of everyone that I knew existed. They all kind of had them in a cabin. And me and Amy went for work. And so Amy and I just like latched onto their group. And so kind of getting introduced to it, the like etiquette of dancing in circles and feeling confident and that kind of thing, and kind of putting yourself out there and communicating with these people. So I think around this time I had touch points with either these meetups, with people at festivals. And then, like I mentioned, this video, we had this competition during COVID for Electric Zoo. And that video is the video that I was explaining where I watched it back and I was like, oh, okay, like wow, that was probably the best I've ever danced in my life. And that really felt like my true expression. And then it was like, that's it. And I went all the way to the end of that competition. And I think that exposed me to a lot of other shufflers in the world or like in the network, because it was like I don't know, no one had anything to do during COVID. So people were like kind of tuned into these things.
Did that video kind of blow up? Or?
Blew up for me at the time, you know? And at the time during that competition, you're like, holy shit. Like, I think I gained like 1,000 to 2,000 followers from that competition. And that was so impactful. You know, you're like, holy cow, this is so crazy. And so I think a lot of people kind of started to catch me and who I was. And then when we went to events, they would be a little bit more, they'll come up to me and we kind of have that interaction.
Some notoriety.
Yeah. And you're kind of getting a grasp of how the whole community works and how it's such a special like cherry on top to just being able to dance like this and be able to express yourself. It's the community that it's like created. So that was definitely all of those things around the same time were my first introduction to the shuffle world community.
Got it. And it's cool. My buddy Daniel, he's actually my crew leader for Sideshow. He was on and he was saying like, what other community or group where we center ourselves around an interest where you can see like your idols like out in a festival or like out in a show, or at least just, you know, maybe you're familiar with them via Instagram, or maybe you saw them on a podcast. But, you know, and then you can go up to them and you can dance with, you can dance with them, you know, so long as you're calibrated and like everything's good, you know, and you're there for all the right reasons. So it's very cool that people were able to have that experience with you now. And, so from there, like, even from that point, like, I feel like your life has definitely transformed, you know, like the followership has grown. How has that been for you personally? Like having this audience, having this new sense of notoriety, maybe like sense of obligation to the people who do follow you, whether that be with like the content that you're putting out, the tutorials, like, you know, what you're doing in the community. Like there's like not a closer eye, but many eyes now on you. Is that heavy? Is that, you know, what did it take time to get used to? Like what has that been like for you?
You know, I feel as though I've been trying to get to that point for so long and had this idea of what it would be once I got there. But now that I'm actually here and I feel so satisfied with, you know, where I am in the community that I built, that I don't feel like I need anything else or to go anywhere. It's kind of a relaxing feeling, like, like I've done what I've wanted to do for a while, and now I can just sit back and put out the content that I've wanted to. I don't know. I don't feel that much pressure, and I've caught a really nice rhythm in how I post and the work I put into it. And it just feels nice. I don't know. There's no real, the only difference that has entered my life recently that has been just a little like, you're like, oh gosh, like this is really wild. But I went to Okeechobee Festival and I would get noticed like every single day. Someone would come up to me and have such like amazing things to say. And they would leave and I would just be like, oh my God, like, holy shit, like, what the hell? Like, that's just so wild. Like, that thought never crossed my mind that would happen, or that would be, you know, a product of building this following. Like, they're actual people. You're like, oh God, they're actually out there, you know? So I guess I don't really think about it too much. Someone actually did bring that up to me. They're like, yeah, 50,000, like, can you imagine me in a room of 50,000 people? I was like, no, actually. Now that you put it that way, you're like, oh shit, you know? So I don't know. I guess it just doesn't, I don't really think about it too much. But I think that along the way, I was a little hyper fixated on growing my following. And I think that was kind of unhealthy. And then when I released that idea that I wanted that, you know, you have an intention behind the content that you're sharing. And if your intention is to gain a following, then it loses its magic a bit. I think the energy that you put behind something, I think even though you're doing it through the online internet, I think there's an energetic exchange. And I think that once you release that idea and you focus on your why you're sharing, to inspire people, to make people want to dance, to make people want to maybe try shuffling, maybe express themselves in any way, then I think that the following just comes naturally because your intention's so pure. And that's what you're energetically putting out there to the world. So I think that once I got to that point and really do truly feel that way about what I share, the following doesn't really stress me out too much because I have an intention behind what I'm doing. And so if I'm able to do that just by sharing, then I feel good about it. Not that much of a stress, if that makes sense.
No, it does. No, that really resonates with me. And just the fact that you wrestled with it at some point and then you came out on the other side saying like, okay, my why needs to be in check and then the rest will happen versus, what are the whys of other people and can I conform to them? It's like, it's ass backwards, So I definitely commend you for that. And I'm not at this level at all, but just like with the podcast, like I catch myself looking at followership and all these analytics and things like that. And it's like, and I don't know if you see it right on that whiteboard right there, but I'm trying to cut that crap out. And it says, do it for Christian. My crew member, Christian Gomez, he listens to every single episode and he will write me messages very specifically about, certain parts of an episode. So I know that he's listening to it. And it's like, if nothing else matters. If Christian is listening to it and he's enjoying it and he's gaining value from it, then I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? I'm going to do this day in and day out. It doesn't matter what the followership is, what all that stuff. So it's like coming back to the why, and that's very encouraging for me, what you just said, because I think if you do it for the right reasons, like the rest will fall into place, take care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And another part of it too is you see people with these big followings or podcasts or seeing other shufflers and you start to like envy them, your ego comes up, and you also have to put that in check at the same time that you're like remembering your why, because that was, I think we're all guilty of it. I definitely wrestle with that a bit, like feeling like, why do they have that when I don't? So really like relinquishing those ideas at the same time that you're really honing in on your why. I just feel so confident that, if your intention's pure, you put in the work, that the universe is going to reward you for taking the risk, for putting yourself out there. And it might not always, it might not always feel so instant. For instance, I like to share a lot of like mindset stuff and like coaching. And sometimes it feels a little bit, it's not shuffling. This is a little different from what people would usually expect of me. And so weeks or months will go by where you don't feel like you really get that big of a response. But then, 3 months later, someone messages you like, hey, all of your videos have impacted me so much, X, Y, and Z. And the whole time they've been impacted by it, but they maybe not have just like said something, So while there might be one Christian, there's a lot of other people that are definitely impacted by your podcast, but they just don't always feel the need to tell you or feel like, comfortable or, it's something on them, or they feel like they can get in touch with you, that kind of thing, So people are definitely being impacted by it. They're just not seeing it. And so always keep that in mind too.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. You've been down this road for quite some time. And so you're probably seeing this in a different lens, and thank you for kind of coaching me
you got it,
through
brother.
that. We might have to have more conversations offline, 100%. But it is interesting because like you had even mentioned this in the last podcast that you were on in April. What is it called? It's like fire triangle.
The fire triangle.
The fire triangle. Okay, and you had mentioned this that it happened to you at a festival, like. People have these relationships with you and you're unknowing of them essentially. And it's like people are coming up to you and have like all these data points that they've had with you and it hasn't been unreciprocated, but how would it? You know what I mean? 5 or 50,000 to 1, you know what I mean? Like there's not enough time in the day to like reciprocate everything. And sometimes you're unknowing of it. So it's very interesting to be in that position and to navigate it in such a way. And like you're such a kind soul. It's like you're the best person to be that, because there's many times where it's like you meet your idols or you meet the person that you look up to, and it's like then their expectation is not what you thought they would be or ought to have been during that time. They weren't. And I feel like you probably have had interactions with people where they leave and their expectations were exceeded. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Yeah.
So it's really cool for you to be that person for a lot of these individuals. So
Thank you. Yeah, I gotta keep my ego in check. Don't blow my head up too big.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. You suck.
Yeah, bounce it out a bit.
But with that, what are your goals moving forward with this platform that you've kind of built for yourself, this followership? Where do you want to take it? And we've talked a little bit about like doing it for the right why. What is your why at the moment?
Yeah, so I would say that it kind of goes back to that book and the not having a creative expression. And so I feel like I am a example of stepping to a creative outlet just to do it, and then seeing what comes of it. I had no expectation that this would have turned into what it is today. And that's exactly what the book explains. And there's so many stories that she uses as a reference. And that's actually, now I'm having this like, holy shit, like that is what it turned into, just because simply I wanted to have an expression. And so I think that my why is, if maybe I could be an inspiration for you to want to find your creative outlet, to express yourself and to really connect with yourself, to be the true expression of yourself in whatever outlet that may be. If I could be the spark for that, that would be my why. If it's shuffling, great. If it's movement, or if it's anything, honestly, to step into your power, I think that would be my why. If that makes sense.
It does. Excellent, man. Excellent. Yeah. No, and I think that's a mission statement to project, greatness to the rest of us. You know what I mean? To realize that, we have permission to express ourselves, whether that be the dance or not. We all have like this light in us, these gifts that were given to us. That were statistical anomalies, as we were talking about before.
Yes.
We all are very, and I'm sorry if this is cliche, everyone, but I'm going to say it. Like, we're all walking miracles. Like the statistical probability of you being created, me being created, like, are next to nothing, So like, while we're here, and this is what you were saying, like, we might as well have that, like, put those vibrations out, like who we are, express ourselves. Except if we're low key, then then we're expressing ourselves that way.
Yeah, there was a fascinating thing that someone told me at some point in my life, that we're the only creatures on the planet that can create. So you have a responsibility to do something, create something, put something out into the world that is an expression of you. We're the only ones that can do it. So it's a miracle that we're here, like you said, but then, what can you put out into the world now that you have that awareness and the gratitude just to be here? Would be really cool to see.
Yeah. You never know. You never know who you're inspiring to do that too. So, and I think that, with your guys's, you and Amy's classes and things like that, you provide an environment for that, because, although it's very, it's structured, you guys are going through either a choreography or a concept. People can take that and run with it however they want once class is over, and do their own creations. So I kind of want to just like pivot a little bit and talk about the little tribe that you've created at the Collaboratory Complex, and just how you and Amy have cultivated that. So how did that really start with you? Now, okay, you're established in the shuffle scene. There's some kind of yearning to instruct and to teach. How did that formulate, and then how did you kind of like manifest the rest?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Amy had, as soon as we stayed here for the month of March in 2021, before we moved in May, just to make sure that we wanted to live here, just to kind of get an idea and travel a little around the area to figure out which area we would want to live. And at the same time, there was this serendipitous moment where somebody that she had talked to had said, "Hey, I think that you could probably teach at this studio." And so Amy was doing some virtual things during COVID. And so that's how she became an instructor. And she was doing that for quite some time, both with privates and online choreography classes. And I just never really felt like I got to that point just yet. She has a dance background. She's been dancing, most all of her like adolescence, doing all like tap, jazz, hip hop, that kind of stuff. And so she had an idea of like structure, counts, all that good stuff. And that was just very foreign to me at the time. And I just didn't have the yearning to want to teach. But then there were a few opportunities where Amy included me in those. And then I started to kind of catch the bug, and I liked to see the reaction and like felt like I could be a good teacher in this space. And then from there, Amy started teaching it, that she like had a class or some one-on-ones at that studio. And so she started teaching in Denver, and it became this super exciting part and definitely solidified like, we're going to move here. Like this is all just like meant to be. And then I believe it was like, I guess it was that first month that we were here in May. Vanessa Secco was hosting a master class, like a class at the Collaboratory. And she was asking us if these dates, if we'd be there or whatever. And Collaboratory didn't even open yet. So the studio wasn't open yet. It didn't even wasn't open to the public. And I had no idea what it was, but she was asking us if we could be there and where she was teaching. And we unfortunately couldn't make it because we were going to a festival, but then she helped us get in contact with the studio. And so I was like, hey, we want to teach here. Amy and I had a meeting with the awesome owner, Jasmine. And she was like, yeah, we could put you on a weekly thing. So we just started to put ourselves out there, on social, come to these classes. And it started to kind of build, and like the consistency that you said. And also the Collaboratory Complex is a membership. It's an academy. So you get to sign up for a monthly membership and have access to all of the classes. So it's not just people, like we have people who drop in from outside who are not a part of Collaboratory, but then we also have the Collaboratory members who are coming, who already are showing up for other hip hop classes or jazz or contemporary. They were interested in shuffling. And since they have the membership, now they can come to that class. And so it was over the course of a year, it's having people drop in, it's having other teachers at Collaboratory interested in the classes, and it's also the members there. So that kind of created what the community is that you see showing up to our classes today.
Got it. And what direction do you guys want to take that at the moment? Is that just kind of like a stepping stone into now these like auxiliary gigs that you're getting at festivals and other venues? Yeah,
definitely. I think that really it does, having this on your portfolio, if you're a festival and you're creating, the workshops and things, and you're trying to decide who you want to work with. If you see someone who looks like they're at a pretty established studio, you can kind of like see the receipts of them having community and building. If we're going to Meow Wolf, we have these videos of like, intro classes with 50 people in them. You feel like, okay, well, maybe this would be someone that we'd want to work with. So honestly, we just love it so much and love the community. So I would love to keep that pretty much as is and just help people to kind of come and enter it and feel comfortable to come to those classes and have that get bigger and bigger. And then just use that space too. We've had a few beginner workshops at that studio. And so we'll continue to do those outside of the weekly choreography classes, because we do have a lot of people come to the choreography classes and they're like, this is my first time shuffling. And I'm just like, okay, well, this is going to be hard.
Hold on.
It's an advanced choreography with 130 BPM and like it's going to be tough. But so you kind of have this, it was always a bit of a struggle trying to figure out how to teach there throughout the course of the year, because you want to teach your most complicated stuff because that's what really gets you going. But the people showing up to your classes, you want to also have them feel like they're hitting it and they feel comfortable. They're just like striking out week over week, that's not as encouraging. So that was always like hard to kind of manage, but as people kept coming to classes and the community kept growing, they are phenomenally, like they have grown exceptionally over time. And now they are hitting those advanced choreographies. So I would just like to continue to grow that. I would love to continue to grow my online presence. I would love to, maybe have something similar to, you see a lot of other shufflers having a online subscription base and like passive income to be able to reach more people than just everybody in the Denver area. And then to potentially, keep going to festivals, build our personal brand, have the opportunity to have brand deals, maybe dance on stage, for certain artists that we love. That's a lot, but that's kind of like my hopes and dreams is like to kind of have it all continue in that direction. Like I said, teach at festivals, perform at festivals, grow grow our followings and just build this community and keep bringing in new shufflers.
Yeah. Have fun while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Shoot for the stars, dude. That's sick.
Honestly, why not, right?
How have you, just back to instructing, like how have you progressed as an instructor? Like how were you when you began, and how far do you think you've kind of come? Have you always been kind of natural at this, articulating, things of this nature? It's probably made you a better dancer, what I mean?
For sure. So choreography was always kind of tough for me. I was only doing freestyles for so long. And so the idea of counting was always new to me. Every song is broken up into 8 counts. Like you can, you hear the transitions in different parts of the song, it changes. And so that was all pretty foreign to me. So when you're teaching a class, that's something that's got to be at the forefront of what you're teaching. You got to know where your feet are at every count and in between and count to be able to teach it properly. And so that took some getting used to, because I had to learn it myself and really have it cement into my mind and myself as a dancer. So that was definitely took some time for me. And then, it just kind of grew over time of people asking questions and you maybe not being prepared to answer them in class. And then, almost the complicated parts of the choreography where people are going to need it dissected. And so you start to train your brain to figure out, how am I going to explain this to people? And how can I really break this down for someone so that they'll understand it? Or that specific student who's always going to ask that question, like I have her in mind so that I can, okay, how could I explain this to her? So that's, over time, just kind of makes you a better teacher. You just do it so much on a weekly basis. The kind of energy you want to bring, attending other people's classes and taking what you like, being a little bit of a sponge of things that you've admired about the way that they taught it that way.
They said that well. They showed that well.
They showed up a certain way. And so, you just kind of take little nuggets from here and there. And that's definitely how I've progressed as a teacher in this space.
All right, we are back from our very short break. I see you've changed your shirt.
Yes, I know we have some upcoming questions, so this shirt was a little bit more fitting for some of my responses. So just wanted to throw this bad boy on.
And I just wasn't really feeling like having 2 microphones, so we switched to one. I think it might be lighter outside. We are making jokes because unfortunately, when we first spoke, when we did the final 5, some audio was cut out to no control of either you or myself. But we're moving forward, and I want to just thank you one more time. I know I was praising you before we went on air. Thank you for coming back and just recording the final 5 with me again. I'm so glad that our initial conversation did not get tampered with or anything of that extent. So thank you again for coming through, man.
Absolutely. It's another time we get to hang out.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. So sure. I'm not going to gripe or complain about this at all.
Lesson learned too with all the tech and stuff, and now you have all these upgrades, so worked out.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll just jump right into it, man. So this is the final 5, the 5 questions that I ask all my guests. So let's see how your responses rack and stack, and hopefully the audience can get to know you a little bit more just by what your responses are.
Great.
So first thing I got for you is, what is your favorite musical genre?
Well, I would say that I love all electronic music. I really do. I think that I'm not as knowledgeable now that there are so many subgenres and how they bleed into each other and the terminology. But I would say broadly that my favorite genre now to go see live is bass music. Having moved to Denver, it has converted me. And my favorite music to dance to is house.
Got it. Do you ever feel like if you're at like a bass music either festival or show that you want to start like tapping your feet or do, you know what I mean? Because you're a shuffler at by nature,
Yeah, for sure. Artists like Rez, her music, a little hypnotic, slower BPM. I found this rhythm that I love to shuffle to. Honestly, it might be where I feel like I dance the best. So this little seconds and gaps in time give me the ability to really think about my next move and have these kind of hard stomps that are going along to the music. So yeah, I genuinely love dancing to bass music anytime the music really calls for it.
Yeah, I love bass when it's got that mid-tempo type of BPM to it, the 110s or the 105s or like somewhere in that area. And I've seen you dance to that before, and just like when you're able to rock with that BPM, it's like you can just make your figure eight so long and so like precise as well, because like you said, you have more time to think about these movements and to really add your variations to it, your extra like you know what I mean, because like you have time to like just stop, maybe stomp to it as well.
And that music, like, it genuinely lights me up, so to be able to apply like my dance style to it just really gets me going.
Awesome, man. No, that's cool to hear about. Next question for you. What is your favorite place to dance?
So I would say, and I don't know if this answers, I guess it doesn't really matter, but I would say my favorite place to dance is at a festival or a show. Really being in the live element of it all and in a crowd, being surrounded by people. I feel like you feed off people's energy and just some loud ass speakers. You feel it. You feel it in your chest. Feel the bass in your chest. You don't have headphones I have to worry about flying out when I'm spinning around. In a crowd, in a sea of people, just really getting after it. It's my favorite place to dance.
Yeah, like having vibrations like tell your body how to move is always like the best to me. Whenever I feel like I have headphones on, it's like the acoustic version of that. But then like once you're in that experience and you're literally having like bass just like run through your chest, and it's dictating how you want to move, it just hits differently, and it's an upgrade from just listening to it in your ears.
Right, and I feel like we do our best dancing there too. So I feel like that's no coincidence.
Absolutely. Next question for you. What has been your favorite set, show, or festival that you've attended?
So I would say there are three answers. So one for the larger scale festivals, that would be Coachella for me. We've been going with my group for 7 years in a row now.
Wow.
And I just proposed to Amy, my now fiancé, right before this past year. So
congratulations again.
Thank you. Yes, it's become a very special place for us. And I think that there's another answer for a smaller scale festival.
Yeah, send it.
That would be Lightning in a Bottle. That one is just a retreat of sorts. They put a lot of effort and time into their workshops. It's a lot of art installations, a lot of things to do outside of the big musical events that really makes it such a special and unique place to be. So I highly recommend to everyone that they test that one out.
And I think in the initial part of our conversation, a couple weeks back, you had mentioned that Amy was going to be there to teach some shuffle workshops, and then you were attending. You're her assistant, you know what I mean, exactly. Executive assistant. And so maybe you can just tell the listeners how that went, because it was before you guys had not gone. Yeah.
Now that I've gone, it was pretty surreal to go to a festival that we loved so much the year prior, and be not as much of an attendee, but really to be a part of it was so special. And the turnout was incredible. These people really show up for these workshops. And we probably had about 100 or more people at each one. There was kind of exploding out the sides. So it was a ton of fun. The energy there it's just such an amazing people really invested into what they were doing. So, and a lot of the workshops that are there are very informative. You're either, meditation, sound baths, yoga. So to have a dance style that is so new to people, and to really have them moving, they were just so excited about it. You could tell that the people who run the events were ecstatic about it as well. Like, this is something that we've never really seen before, this type of energy at a workshop. So it was really cool to see, really cool to be a part of. And it will be cool to see how we can continue to do that at other festivals. Because this dance style obviously brings us so much joy. But a lot of people just don't have access to learn, or don't even know what it is at all. I haven't had a touch point with it. So to be at a festival already and to see this on a lineup would pique your interest. And just to form new baby shufflers.
And it's a cool niche because we've all had the experience of someone seeing you shuffling and they want to learn right there in the moment. And it's like, we're in the middle of a set, like communication might not be the best. Yeah, what? And it's like, so doing it as a workshop before the festival, or, you know what I mean, on kind of like a downtime, that's the perfect time to do it. You know what I mean? And then, like maybe then you can instruct a little bit like during the set, but you're also trying to enjoy it yourself. So I think it's like the perfect fit to have these type of workshops, you know, at these festivals. And just the fact that you guys have gone through this and have done it, it's a proof of concept now that number one, people will show up for it and they'll enjoy it. And number two, it's just like, the overall value for yourself and for the festival as well. And it's just drawing other people, maybe even to venture into other workshops that they wouldn't be necessarily looking to do or whatever else. Like you're getting people who might not have went to that festival to learn about shuffling, but they're like, okay, like I attended this one and now we can jump into here. And even though, that wasn't their intention to begin with.
Totally. And workshops like that, you attend it and it forms a little community in itself of the people at the festival who attended that workshop. So then you see people in the crowd throughout the rest of your experience, like, hey, you were there.
Let's practice.
Like together. Or, you know, running up to us, just like, hey, like at one point, someone in the crowd was behind us and Amy and I it just didn't register. And they're like, coach. And we're like looking around like, no one ever calls you coach, like, even if you are the teacher, you know? But we realized that they were talking to us and that they were like, at the class. And the next thing you know, they're attending the Denver class because they're from the area. And it just starts to like really bring people into the community, form a new community. And it was just awesome. A whole new layer to the festival experience.
That's really cool. That's cool that you guys had a pretty rich, experience doing that, and that you can probably forecast that into the future and be able to do this more often.
Hopefully we cement ourselves into these ones.
I kind of interrupted there. Were there any other set shows or festivals?
And then lastly, I just wanted to shout out Skrillex at Red Rocks. That was at the end of April. And that was pretty fresh when we recorded, but still is one of the best sets I've ever seen in my life, for sure.
Awesome.
It was 5 hours long. I don't think I've ever been to another set that has been that long, so let alone who I think Skrillex is just objectively the best in EDM. Just like skill level, the person who kind of brought it into everyone's world. I feel like a lot of people had their first touch point with him, and it was just crazy to be at a 5 hour set. And, you know, I got into this in around 2010, 2011, and he was a big part of it. And to be able to experience all of his music from that point up until this day, was such a crazy experience.
Walk down memory lane.
All the songs I love that got me into it, and just being at Red Rocks. And he had this magical way of, you know, not having much production at all, and like kind of as it went on, slowly giving you a little bit more, a little bit more, and then at the end it was just, you know, a big finale. Had the bracelets that lit up. The crowd was just crazy, and it was just really special.
Very cool. I'm sure it was very nostalgic for you being there. Kind of a full circle moment in your really not like shuffling journey, but EDM journey in general, just like loving this music, you know, and then obviously everything else has entered in your life since then, you know, shuffling and attending festivals and all these things. So very cool.
Yeah, thanks, Sonny.
All right, next question. We're going to shift gears a little bit. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And if I could get on my hands and knees and beg everyone in the world to read this, I really would. I think it should be in schools. I think everyone should learn the lessons in this book just because it has such value in every part of your life. And it really rewired the way my brain thinks. And it was the first book that helped me to understand the value of books in general. So it's like, wow, I could learn the power of this one book. So then it made me more interested to always keep a book in rotation. Whereas before I was kind of like dragging my feet.
Got it. I think I'm there. I'm more on the feet dragging aspect of it versus the steady roll of, you know, different books. Like I'm in the middle of like 2 books right now that I ought to finish, but Just for the listeners, what's one lesson that you really pulled away from that book that is just, you don't feel like you'd be the same person without it?
Yeah, sure. So it really helped me to identify who I am as a being, like a spiritual light. So to separate myself from my thoughts and to identify my ego, and in the process of my brain working to be able to differentiate the two. And so to take myself out and really observe how I was functioning in every moment, in every aspect of my life, to not get lost in my thoughts, but to be present, and then to not let my ego rule in any other aspect of my life.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah. A mindfulness practice,
Yes.
or a almost like dedicating yourself to mindfulness at any given point in time, whether, that's easy or hard within every given point or time, or whatever else. But it seems like it's that reminder for you, you know what I mean, to be mindful.
I didn't even know that there was this separation, or, a lot of these things I didn't even realize. So it kind of woke me up and realized, then you start to get to know who you really are outside of those things. And then that bleeds into every other aspect of your life.
Yeah, all aspects of life. Very cool, man.
Sure.
Thank you for sharing that.
You got it.
All right. I have the last question for you. If you were to put any message on the main stage production of a large-scale festival, let's think Coachella, let's think EDC Las Vegas, what would that message say? There would be thousands, tens of thousands of people viewing it.
Okay, yeah. It would be one of my favorite quotes that goes, "Forbid a premature closing of your accounts with reality." I feel like you'd have to leave it up on the screen pretty long so everyone can really read it and sink in. I'll say it one more time too, yeah. Forbid a premature closing of your accounts with reality. So what it really means is never assume that you have it all figured out. Don't reach a point in your life where you believe that you know how this world works, you know how consciousness works, you know what you like and what you don't like. Don't draw a line in the sand and go through your whole life saying, this is the way it is and this is the way I decided it is, and never staying curious, right? And just staying open-minded to the world around you. So really never shut that door in any direction, because I think you'll surprise yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping an open mind. It reminds me of the quote from Mark Twain, which I hope I don't butcher it right now, but he basically said, it's not what you don't know that is like the problem. It's not what you don't know that that you should worry about. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. It's like thinking that you know things and it's very concrete and like you've hung your hat on it multiple times. That can be dangerous. You know what I mean? It can be something that, although it might serve us from time to time to like have our reality in check and to be confident in it, I think there's also times where you need to very much like take a step back and just assess like, okay, are my beliefs, really serving me, or should I be open to other beliefs that might serve me better in the future, or that are just more factual or true or whatever else.
Yeah, otherwise you're really putting yourself in a box and in a bubble. And one of Amy's favorite quotes, it goes something like, growth doesn't happen in a bubble. So you're really like limiting yourself when you have such you're just such a stubborn person. You don't want to try new things. You don't want to see why people love something that you just don't really get so much. Or, wanting to dance in different ways and grow in different ways. Like, I don't really like that, but have you ever tried? Have you ever tried this? Have you ever tried that? Really putting yourself out there. I think that there are so many things in my life that, even bass music, I really was not a fan. But then you come to a place where hundreds of thousands of people are lining up for these things and going to these events, and you have to ask yourself, like, okay, well, what is it that they love that's so special about it? There has to be something, and go looking for that something in every direction. What's so, and maybe if you do make the effort and it's really not for you, then at that point you can say, maybe that's not my thing.
I will revisit it later.
It's not forcing you to like everything, but just to stay curious and open-minded.
Excellent. And I think that becomes even more important as we age and we grow older, because, we get more data points in our life, and it's like, maybe we want to hang our hat more on some of the beliefs, or like cauterize them within ourselves. And I think developmental psychology just basically says that people become more stubborn as they get older. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they need to be more conservative with their beliefs or whatever. So I think it becomes more important as we become aging ravers to be open to other things, other music genres, or just, life stuff too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not just talking about music or shuffling here, just in life in general. So.
Yeah, as people, when the younger generations, they grew up, and then the adults are like, what is this rock and roll?
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't get to a point with EDM, these new genres are going to exist and we're going to get older and be like, that's not EDM.
Yeah. What is this high-tech minimal?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
This ain't EDM,
Yeah.
Hopefully don't be that guy.
No. Definitely won't be jaded in that sense. I'm sure I'll be able to see the beauty and the evolutions, you know what I mean, that are to come. So I hope so.
Yeah, well, you're now recorded saying it. So.
Yeah. I'll hold myself to it. I'll watch back or I'll look back on this and be like, all right, that's a reminder.
Which is a crazy thought that this is recorded and years down the line we can look back at this.
Yeah. Is that cool, man?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we could chat about it, see how much we've evolved and
Changed,
grown, and just totally different. So, but that'll be neat. I think it'll instill a timeline of this culture, you know what I mean? Like we're just like a very small piece of this large movement that is shuffle dancing, it's still very much new to the dance community as we know it. Like hip hop, breaking, all that stuff been around a little bit longer, but shuffling is a little bit more in its infancy. So this is a little time capsule that we're in right now.
Yeah. Happy to be a part of it.
Awesome, man. Well, that is all I had for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners before we get out of here? I know that you might have some more events kind of coming up. Is there anything that you'd like to just throw out there?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. The next events that I can think of that I would just like to shout out, we're going to Elements Music Festival in Pennsylvania. Has a insane lineup.
Yes, I've seen.
So tasty. And Amy and I are going to be a part of it. I think we might be hosting a shuffle class there and just running around doing different interviews and things at the event. So if you see us at Elements in like a month or a little under a month or over a month, love to see you there and please come say hi.
Awesome. Yeah. Dude, I am going to a Spanish school in Middlebury, Vermont, which is like 4.5 hours away from where Elements is. And so like I am so on the fence about sending that festival. Like it really comes down to like how I get there, logistics wise. But I have some homies in the background trying to get me just like free tickets, for the days that I can go.
Okay.
So we shall see. Maybe I will see you down
absolutely.
there. It looks so sick. Like the lineup is thick.
And it's another one of those that is on the smaller side. So they've switched venues a few times, but I went to the latest one last year.
Okay.
And it was just so nice and simple and easy. You just camp right there. Festival's pretty small, but has a nice production, makes it a lot of fun. But you can bounce back and forth between your campsite, no problem, and just run around. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think I'll see you there.
I manifest it for me. I'll try and manifest it on my side. Hopefully, that'll be enough. But we were talking before we jumped back on, and I was telling you I haven't been to a camping festival yet. Like, this might be it.
Could be the best one, yeah.
We shall see. We shall see. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I know that this conversation has resonated with a lot of people. What's the best way for individuals to reach out to you? Just to say hi, just to maybe elaborate on your story, maybe, tricks, tips, moving forward as a coach and instructor.
Yeah, I would say I am most active on Instagram, and my @ name is TheRealJames_P. So if you are at all interested or have any questions, you can please shoot me a DM there.
Awesome, man. That sounds great. I'm sure people will take advantage of that.
Hopefully.
But once again, I appreciate you coming back on. Thank you so much for being understanding for the whole situation, and just rogering up to spend some more time with me. This is dope,
absolutely.
dude.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Shuffle Curious podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the show so far.
We are past the launch, and I'm so appreciative of the support that the show has received. You guys have really stepped up in a huge way, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I know this is a big ask due to the show just starting, and it's very much in its infancy, but any and all support would really be amazing from you guys. So I just wanted to come on and list a couple ways that you guys can help out the podcast moving forward. So first and foremost, subscribing to the YouTube channel would be a huge help. Also sharing and following the show on other social media platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, but in particular, YouTube will really help increase the visibility of the show, and it can help to reach a wider audience as well. In addition to this, leaving a review on anywhere where podcasts are distributed, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, can really leave a positive impression on new listeners, and it will help them discover the podcast more readily. Also, engaging with the podcast, so leaving comments, participating in social media discussions, and just anything that would really help build a community around the podcast would be of great assistance. And please feel free, DM me my personal Instagram at Patty Creates, or the show's Instagram at the Shuffle Curious Podcast, with the spaces being underscores. I would love to hear any feedback, any ideas, any discourse around the show. It would be an honor to hear you guys out and implement some of the ideas and the feedback that you guys have for me. Also, donating to the podcast directly or purchasing a Shuffle Curious shirt would help out a lot. There's a lot of time, there's a lot of energy, and unfortunately money that goes into the podcast, and it will continue to go into the podcast. So let's just get one thing straight here. It's really been a complete joy doing the show, and no matter how much or how little monetary assistance the show receives, we'll still be performing the mission of bringing the Shuffle community together. But with a little bit of help, I'll be able to travel more for these interviews, buy better equipment, be able to compensate all the amazing people who have made the show a reality and have volunteered their time, things of that nature. So buying a shirt would be much more than buying a shirt. And I don't know if you guys realize, but if I ever saw someone at a festival wearing a Shuffle Curious podcast shirt, you would be my best friend in a huge way. I'd love to see it, and I'd give you a big bear hug. So you can purchase these shirts on the Instagram bio of the show, also the show's website, and then I'll have links in the show notes as well. As for the donation, just please, send me a DM if you feel inclined to donate to the show. I will definitely entertain that, and if you're so inclined, that would be absolutely amazing. I'm not going to create a button for donating to the show or GoFundMe or anything like that. It would just be a conversation between you and I. So, and I thank you for that consideration. But lastly, you guys have supported the show just by listening. Also listening to this whole outro, that's awesome. You guys rule for doing that. And I just cannot understate my appreciation for all of you guys, for being a part of this crazy ride that it's been so far. So without further ado, I wanted to get on, give you guys a couple of ways that you can support. You can run with as many or as little of them as you would like, but I thank you, regardless for your listenership and support. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. Please get out there and dance, stay curious, and I will see you in the next episode, friend.